My favorite fedora I stole from Walmart. Someplace. No, I don't wear shorts. Those are for douches.
Can you guys hear me? Thanks so much, everyone, for coming out tonight. This is really awesome. This is like the best looking crowd I've ever seen. And dear old Bart would be so proud. May he rest in peace. Yes. Okay, awesome. So, for years, everyone's been asking me, when we talk about beer, brass, and BS, just what does the BS stand for? Tonight, you're going to find out. Because tonight we've come to celebrate the life, and in fact, all the lives of Bartholomew Sebastian. He is the original chrononaut and our patron saint. I first met my Uncle Bart when I was young, and he was the embodiment of impossible things. He lit up the room, and to a child, he seemed impossibly amazing, which it turns out he was impossibly amazing. Sorry, thank you. Sorry, guys. Better? Is it picking me up? Okay. As I got older, my Uncle Bart claimed that nearly every great fictional character was based on him, of course. And he once spontaneously informed me that if I'd ever heard a rumor that he and Nikola Tesla were lovers, I could just ignore that. He said, Nick and I are just friends. Nobody's ever going to take the place of that pigeon, you trust me. At the time, I had no idea what he meant. And of course, he always brought the best gifts. Eventually, he told me about time travel. He informed me that he planned for me to be a catalyst for the invention of time travel. I was never meant to know the inventor. I was never meant to be the inventor. But he told me that it was my job to bring together the right people and the right mix at the right time, or time travel would never happen, and to me, he would never exist. And I took him seriously. I was kind of horrified. So, Beer, Brass, and BS was born. It's possible the inventor of time travel is sitting in this room right here today. And if I had to put my money on anyone, I'd say Edwin Wise. As many of you are already aware, I found Bart about a month ago, dead on my sofa. And he appeared very dead, but I'd seen him in a few drunken stupors that could pass for death on more than one occasion, so we left him there for a few days, in fact. And when he didn't revive, I wondered if another version of him might show up to collect the body, but none did. Then the truly strange began, if you don't think that's strange enough. He started to fade. Sorry guys, my notes are kind of hard to see. First his flesh faded away. It didn't rot. It just became less and less. And then his clothing faded. Eventually, he was nothing more than bones and a few personal items, which are here with us tonight. Then his bones began to shrink and turn a silver pewter color. And when we began building the coffin, he was just over 6 feet. Now he's just about 5 feet. We're not sure what he's turning into, but if the time vortices in my house are anything to go by, I would guess pure unobtainium. And with that in mind, I caution those of you viewing the bones to possibly not touch them or linger too long, because spontaneous time travel could occur. So tonight we celebrate the life and death of Bartholomew Sebastian, a rake and a raconteur, a man who was a lover and a fighter, a time traveler, a lover of children, small animals, a really good party, and quite frankly, himself. There is naturally a ritual to be observed, and of course it involves one of dear old Bart's favorite things. When we finish, we'll all have a drink in hand, and we'll toast to Bart. And so, to my Uncle Bart. Bart. Up next is Luna Chanel.
Friends, I'm here to tell you my story of how I first met Bartholomew Sebastian. So, this man was my first time traveler, that is. I met him back in my blameless youth. He was wearing a very pale look back then. Bleached hair, pale skin, white clothes. It was the 80s, and he really stood out from the crowd, if for no reason than his complete lack of color. Back then, in my student days, I was hanging out with a bunch of weirdos who liked to dress up in funny medieval clothes, go camping and hit each other with sticks, or poke at each other with swords. One night, I woke up in my tent feeling nature's call rather strongly after the usual campfire drinking and singing, and I emerged blearily, and to find I'd gotten completely turned around. I didn't recognize at all where I was. There were a few stragglers around one of the nearby encampments, singing by the fire. One of these was this handsome, white-haired rock star-looking devil, who I certainly didn't remember being around the day before. He perceived my confusion and hopped over briskly to escort me to the privies, making cheerful conversation about God knows what. Though sadly, my pounding head did not allow me to recall any of this conversation to this day. Afterwards, he returned me to my tent, and I belatedly realized I was talking to an awfully cute boy who had a bewitching smile and a fine set of chainmail. I asked him if I would see him at the melees tomorrow, and he replied, "You never know." All next day I looked for him in vain, and I was kicking myself for missing my opportunity. Well, by the next weekend, I'd reconciled myself to the fact that I'd never see him again, having asked everyone I knew who the cute blonde with the Billy Idol haircut was, and receiving only blank looks and polite derision about my late night experiences. So that Friday night was the weekly house party my roommates and I had, always running well into the wee hours. After having expelled a few guests from my room towards dawn, I had just laid down when I heard an urgent knocking at the door. Since everyone else was profoundly unable to hear, let alone answer, I gathered myself up and stumbled to the front door. When I opened it, there he was. "Hi, have you got any waffles?" He asked earnestly, flashing that crazy smile. I let him in, seriously bewildered, and we made our way to the kitchen, stepping carefully around the bodies of the fallen. Over a breakfast of frozen toaster waffles, I finally learned his name, Bartholomew Sebastian. Soon, Sebastian, he went by that name in those days, had talked me into going to a crazy Victorian-themed picnic that very afternoon, against my better judgment, despite my lack of sleep. Did I mention he was one charming fellow? He winked and took his leave, promising to fetch me at noon sharp. Well, I should have taken this as my cue to catch a nap before our date, but no! Having only medieval and no Victorian costumes, I stayed up all morning, frantically throwing together an 1890s cycling dress. And what I felt was a pretty darn fine wide-brimmed hat. I was just pulling on some boots when he walked in the front door, stepping over my inert guests, and said, "You look perfect, let's go!" So, here, you'll need these. He handed me a pair of goggles and led me to an amazing motorcycle and sidecar rig. Strangely, I remember very little of that ride. When we arrived at the picnic, I was feeling pretty loopy from lack of sleep and excessive speed. He introduced me to a very interesting group of people, all riotously colorful in comparison to his all-white garb. The last person he introduced me to completely and totally floored me. The most slender, graceful, and beautiful man I ever saw, with long black hair and the kind of eyes you can't say no to. A fellow by the name of Carnelian. For a full minute I stood there overwhelmed. This polite and approving conversation was essayed in my direction. Such a charming costume, so authentic, so austere, they chattered. I caught Sebastian's eye as he stood off to one side. He smiled that fantastic smile at me. "You'll be okay now," he whispered. "These are the best people you could find to get you started." He winked and sauntered off towards the buffet, leaving me surrounded and more than a little dazed. I never saw him again. But my new crowd assured me that we'd meet again someday because he was the sort of man that knows everyone. And sure enough, most everyone I know that is the sort of person that knows everyone had at one time or another crossed paths with Bartholomew Sebastian. And always, like our fabulous hostess Sam, he introduced people to other people in ways that changed lives and made all the difference. To Sebastian.
Sebastian.
Our next eulogizer will be Nikki G.
It's foggy, like looking through stained glass, my memories. They're real, I know because I felt them. Can still feel them. But they seem so far away now. Like no matter how far I stretch or how wide my reach, I can't touch them. He was a whirlwind, with a personality as big as life and a heart just as large. His laughter still rings like church bells in my ears, reverberating into my soul, clutching at my heart and catching my breath. It's hard to touch those memories, so filmy and fuzzy. But as I stare through the window of my mind, I can still feel the warmth they always give me. There would be years in between those visits, where all I had was the memories to keep me going. Like a blazing hearth at a snowstorm, I'd huddle close to the past, feeding off of it to carry on until our next encounter. I don't quite remember when this routine began, where the circle of our friendship first met, but it continued on in that pattern, a never-ending cycle of waiting and returning, of running and anticipation. Anticipation was the very definition of Bartholomew's life. You never knew what would come next, but you wanted it, craved it, whatever it was. He held the universe in his head, and you only need speak to him to reveal worlds beyond any imagination, stories of enchantment and darkness that set your every nerve ablaze with energy. Bartholomew could weave a tale that had you closing your eyes and placing you in the thicket of it. He could always take you anywhere with just a few beautiful phrases. His words were like magic. He was like magic. The depth of the end and the beauty of the beginning were all hidden behind his lips, in his eyes, hidden behind his mischievous grin. Bartholomew Sebastian leaves behind an imprint that will never fade, a mountainous being that fits so seamlessly into normalcy, yet at the same time was a soul so uniquely his own he could never blend in. Bartholomew was, is, and will be forever. Antea beyond Shulok, beyond Skelok. He who travels has stories to tell. To Barty. Next eulogy, Barbara Slough.
As you can see, I am not Barbara Slough. My niece arranged for my appearance here. My niece Barbara. My name is Colonel Irving B. Ramsauer III. Let us take us back to Alaska, 1883. Old Bartholomew and I spent some adventurous days on a Yukon steamship to do some gold prospecting. This was 15 years before all those other upstarts in the so-called gold rush. One of our forays into the wild caught us slogging about the day through a sudden blizzard. Snow up to our cravats. Exhausted, we sought shelter in a welcome crag rounding a bend in a pass. I don't know how many of you knew that old BS used to sport a magnificent handlebar mustache in those days. Very proud he was. Well, we unloaded our gear and took stock of our situation. The relief of the shelter, we looked at each other and burst out laughing at how we fared. He tugged on my ice-covered beard, chiding me about looking like St. Nicholas during the North Pole. So I tweaked his frozen mustache. And it broke off in my hand. He was so sputtered indignantly while I was doubled over laughing. He had to wait for it to thaw before he could trim it evenly. But in the meantime, it was great fun seeing him with only half a stash. He never grew it back. Oh, to have had a camera in those days. But I do have this. I saved it. So, here's to you, old chap. Good times.
Good times.
Oh, and our next presenter, Nathan Dowdy.
Bartholomew Sebastian. He was, or is, or will be one of the greatest men of all time. And believe me, he checked. Bart's life was long and full, though just how long he never really said. Just that he was a very close relative of one Lazarus Long. His greatest accomplishments are the ones that go uncredited by history. His tales of ancient beings from beyond the stars, beyond the realms of perception, the vast cyclopean ruins of the long dead world, and the young boy named Howard in whom he confided this hidden history. He spoke of a young man by the name of Edgar, with whom he conversed regularly on macabre things, that which lurks in the shadows, the whispers in the back of your mind, and the perils of human emotion. But Bart's literary legacy isn't all dark, as he inspired Ray Bradbury, Isaac Asimov, and even Gene Roddenberry drew stories from Bart's life. Or so he claims. The story of his first time traveling expedition draws rather curious parallels to a certain novel by H.G. Wells. Bartholomew spoke highly of these great philosophers, these men whose works went on to change the world, or at least the way it is perceived by those with minds open to a realm of possibilities beyond human conception. He would also lament regularly on the lack of recognition for many great authors. He inspired me to pick up my books and give voice to these men that would live on through each and every reader, through each curious child and all who pursue the impossible. Though long dead, they are immortal, as is the inimitable, irreplaceable, and beloved Professor Bartholomew Sebastian. To Bart.
Bart.
And I'd like to welcome to the stage Reed Sheridan Rose for the next movie.
I thought long and hard about what to say about Bartholomew. I almost had to call in and say, I can't do it, I just can't put it into words. But I managed this slight poem. Goodbye, B.S. We come together here tonight to speak about Bartholomew's light. It's now gone out, he's left our sight, but we've got a chance to set things right. We have a chance to tell our stories of Bart's triumphs and his glories, of daring do's by lorries, and near escapes of sinking dories. You never knew when Bart would show that roguish smile begin to grow, those twinkling eyes begin to glow, those breathless words, come on, let's go. We'll miss him now that he is gone, but somehow we will carry on. We say goodbye to our BS, but won't forget he was the best. To Bartholomew. I now call to the stage Wendy Snyder.
Gathered here to pay our respects and celebrate the life of Bartholomew Sebastian. I knew B.S. for much of his short but colorful lives, from his time with Opal to his close association with Sherlock. Old B.S. was a ladies' man, and he was a man's man. He didn't seem to spend much time in this world, but he traveled to other times and dimensions, and thereby lived an extended lifetime. He did travel this globe extensively into many ports around the world. He loved his port, and his brandy, and vodka, and gin, and any other alcohol he could get his hands on. He fancied fine cigars and smoked with some of you gentlemen in this room, even though you did not know it, because he was a master of disguise. Bombastic and rude, he could still charm everyone in the room. He was an amazing storyteller, old Bartholomew. He could bullshit with the best of them. Many of his stories were based on his real travels, but then he would wander off into strange Lovecraftian realms.
Kickstarter.
He was a man who lived fully and cared about his friends. He brought a touch of magic to this world that we will sorely miss. Goodbye, Bartholomew, and good travels to you. Some people die and are quickly forgotten. Some people seem to fade away and you never hear from them again. I hope you will I hope you will always remember Bartholomew. Could Liz Barton please come to speak next? Thank you.
To Bartholomew.
Bartholomew.
Leave the light, Mindy.
Oh, go away from the lights.
Away from the light.
No, she's gonna sit.
Woo! Woohoo!
Thank you, Bart. Lovely feedback.
I first met Bartholomew Sebastian many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea. Its name doesn't matter. We were there to attend the funeral of the king's only child. It has given me pleasure through the years that something so delightful as our acquaintance should have emerged from such a sorrowful occasion. After Annabel Lee, who, frankly, I always considered a rather dreary child, was laid to rest, the mourners withdrew to the palace for the funeral feast. It chanced that Bartholomew and I were seated next to each other, and I was immediately struck by his charm. In the course of the conversation, we discovered we had a great deal in common. We both enjoyed water skiing at the dark torrent of Over, and strolling through the misty mid-regions of Weir, when the moonlight glowed upon the fog. Indeed, so impressed was I with my new acquaintance that I gathered my courage and told him something I had never told another soul. Imagine my wonder and joy to discover that my new companion was also a Tempest magician, a master of time travel. In the years that followed, we would meet often, time and time and time and time and time again. Sometimes by design, others by happenstance. Time travel can be a lonely business, so one learns deep appreciation for those few occasions when one comes upon a compatible companion. So it was with great sadness that I learned dear Bartholomew had faded from this reality, perhaps into one to which the rest of us will also pass at the appropriate hour. Fortunately, I will have the pleasure of joining him for a picnic in the future, along with some pleasant young aleroy, after which we may embark on a Morlock hunt. You have to kind of keep the population down to prevent overgrazing. I know this because we have done it so in a different wind. Let us rejoice that we have had the pleasure of the company of Bartholomew Sebastian Esquire, or will have it, or are having it. Maybe we all meet again somewhere, somehow, somewhen. To Bartholomew, may you land in heaven a half hour before the devil knows you're dead. And now we will hear from Russ Argo.
I only found out when Sam posted this final meeting that I had indeed met BS before. Back in my college days, I'd set a few years out between studying engineering and returning back to mathematics. And as an engineer, I didn't have to take those pesky little things known as humanities. But when I returned in mathematics, yes, I did have to take them. And so I took a world literature course. I took it in the evenings so I would be with other people closer to my age, as I was only 24 or 25, but I didn't want to be sitting in classes with 18-year-olds. Our professor, actually a grad student, gave us our final as a take-home. And during the time that would have been our final, that final class, he suggested that everyone 21 and over get together and read a short passage from their favorite literature at the local beer garden. And that's where I met BS. He was sitting in the back, looking much as he does in that picture, more threadbare, carrying a steamer trunk, which I don't know how he carried, being so large, but so nimbly, covered in stickers from around the world. I thought he was homeless at the time. And he watched it with amusement as each person stood up and talked. I want to take a little side trip. I went to the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, Arkansas. It's one of only 3 campuses, and now the only one left, that still engraves the names of the graduates in their sidewalks. I discovered that there are no fewer than 7 instances of Bartholomew Sebastian carved in there between 1891 and 1991. Whether it's the same man or not, I cannot say. The beer garden that I speak of is on Dixon Street, which is very much like 6th Street here. It is the college hangout. It is right off campus, and it's right next to the train tracks. After we had finished that evening, Bartholomew approached me right before I left, and we started talking. We talked till well after midnight, and then it was almost 2 o'clock when they were making final call and we had to leave. Picked up his steamer trunk and we walked out together. He started walking over towards the old train depot that had been closed for over 50 years. Said he had a train to catch and asked if I wanted to join him. I said, how could I refuse? I wanted to humor him one last time. We got over there and found one of the windows had already been busted out. It was boarded up, but it had been broken out from the inside, not from the outside. And he threw his steamer trunk in, jumped in after it. I decided in for a penny, in for a pound. I'd always wanted to see what the inside of that train depot looked like. I followed him after. I was surprised to find that it was amazingly dust-free, looking as if it is actually in use. Then we heard a noise from the back and a light coming from the old ticket cage. Little old man, wry smile, very wrinkly, called out to us. Bartholomew answered, and the old man did not like his answer. Picked up his whistle and started blowing it, yelling for the constable. Bartholomew picked up that old steamer, ran for the window, threw it back out there. I followed him, not knowing what was going on. The Dixon Street I landed on was not the Dixon Street I had left just minutes before. It was now a dirt road, bricks here and there, the unpleasant smell of horse manure that had not been scooped for the day yet, lingering, and then the faint whistle of a train nearing. It slowed down as it approached the depot, but didn't stop. Bartholomew just started running alongside. Whenever an open car came along, he threw his steamer trunk in and jumped in. Held his hand out to me and asked me to join him. Again, in for a penny, in for a pound. So I jumped on that train with him. We rode the Arkansas-Missouri line all the way up to Kansas City, talking about places he had been, things he talked about that I didn't understand yet. Wi-Fi, laptop computers, flying cars. It was a fun 3 days as we rode there and then turned around and started our travels back again. We were approaching Fayetteville once again. He told me it was time for me to depart, that I couldn't see any more than I had seen for fear of disturbing the future. But he did tell me one thing, and that was to keep an eye out for someone near and dear to him. And it took me another 20 years after that until I moved here and finally met her, and that's Sam Tyler. So, Sam, he holds a dear place in his heart for you, as I'm sure you do for him. So, to Sam and to Barb. And now I want to welcome up onto the stage Lisa Turner.
Part of me wants to go, but he'd slap me, I'm sure. So this is not really a eulogy, but perhaps more of a long-winded thank you. I don't want to take up too much time, in part because my dear great-great-aunt, Bartholomew Sebastian, lived many lives and was part of many families in many forms. He, sometimes she, would rather time be spent knocking back pints rather than reminiscing of the past, future, and future past. I was a child when she sat me down one day and took my hand, telling me, "You are going to face hardships in your life, as do all. They come in waves, like the chapters of a book. Know you grow stronger with each passing page, and when you find yourself in a city of arts, don't be consumed by your work and forget the strength of your heart. When you find yourself drowning, let go, and when you wash ashore, you will find a mysterious stranger who will help you remember the passions you carry now." In 2008, I relocated to Austin, Texas, consumed by the job I loved, devoted to the 12-hour days, on a fast track to greatly desired prominence. However, on May 18th, 2009, my life was derailed by sickness, leaving me paralyzed, my independence stripped of me in a matter of days. Sitting there feeling my body wither away, I remembered her words about letting go, and I did just that, and let the sickness run its course before beginning my new chapter of fighting to regain what I had lost. Stranded at home, unable to work a job I loved for more than a few moments at a time, I felt a looming darkness swell over me. Staring at the pile of bottle caps building in the vase by the sink, I remembered the crafts that I had made as a child with found objects, magazine clippings, feathers, leather, and more. My hands could barely work for more than an hour or two a day. Crafting could be an entertaining physical therapy alternative to regain strength and endurance. I mulled over ideas of what to create and found myself digging through pages of inspiration. Antiques, skeleton keys, cogs, gears, soot, and grease. Here was an aesthetic that resonated with the passions my heart embraced, but for which I had no name. In January 2010, I started Turner's Tokens. Over the following year, I found a name for the style that warmed my heart, and it was steampunk. My drive to find like-minded community was only limited by my energy, still sorely lacking as recovery from my illness was painfully slow. I discovered groups that met at coffee houses fairly regularly. Some would even go on strolls down South Congress on first Thursdays in full garb. I found Secret October, where I was able to sell my creations and become involved in the events at the Elysium. I even vended a few conventions where I had fleeting encounters with amazingly costumed creators and inventors. Near the end of 2010, I had a fateful day when I conducted a search in the ever-trusty Google, which led to me finding a steampunk-dedicated shop mere minutes from where I lived. The name was the Mysterium, and it was run by a Sam Tyler. This was it. This was my mysterious stranger. How do you sum up the past years? Packed full with heart, dedication, drive, and passion, an inspiring individual of such magnitude is truly a gift to be graciously praised. Obstacles arose as they do, and they were met with fighting, clawing, and tearing, then to be added to another notch in her belt. Her energy and heart are purely infectious, as it inspires and drives me to push myself further in my own works to create, connect, and to develop. She felt the pulse of the community and poured blood, sweat, and sometimes hidden tears into the making of a solid foundation on which the Austin steampunk community flourished. A common space offered, events and gatherings organized, friendship and community established. She created a sounding board for the creators, inventors, and dreamers to gain footing as they continued their own growth. So I say thank you to Bartholomew for giving me warning of my impending encounter with such an influential and inspiring individual. I say thank you to everyone in this room, and to those unable to make it here tonight. They're probably out partying with Bart. And to those unable to make it here tonight for being part of the family I've gained since moving to Austin. And I say thank you to Sam Tyler for all that she has done and provided for not only the Austin steampunk community, but the Texas steampunk community. Many came before, more have yet to come, but you've no doubt helped to create the foundation on which many have found inspiration and passion for an aesthetic that otherwise had no name or meaning to them previously. So with this, I raise my glass and wipe my eyes as we bid farewell to the end of this chapter, and we turn the page to a new beginning. Large boots wait to be filled, a chalice brimming with opportunity awaiting those devoted to the hard work and sweat required. This may be the wake of Bartholomew Sebastian, but this is also a celebration of this legacy, Sam Tyler and the Mysterium, and the impact both have had on the steampunks of Austin. To Bart and the Mysterium. And with this, I invite Donna Jean to come up on stage.
Thank you, Sam. I've never been asked to speak at a wake before, so this is my first eulogy. For Bartholomew Sebastian, Esquire. My earliest memory of Bart is around 1590. It was during one of those many wars we have with Japan, in Korea. He was helping my grandfather, Admiral Yi Sun-shin, build the turtle ship, which won the war. I was a young lady in my prime and was absolutely smitten with this, with his quirks and gestures, and those big, round, pale blue eyes. I would bring him tea as often as I could. But he was so fixated on that stupid ship, the details and this and that and these little trinkets, that he'd never bothered to make eye contact with me. What a moron. I'm the granddaughter of a very important man, and I'm good stock. Well, so what? It was the first ironclad warship of its time, and yeah, it was his idea that cannonballs should shoot fire out of its mouth and of the dragon's head, but why call it a turtle ship if you're going to put a dragon's head on it? It made no sense. Well, after the war was won and we had our festivities, I figured, hey, here's my chance. So I brewed him some really special tea. It had ginseng, yohambi, goat's head. Yeah, it's had some good stuff in it. Well, I went looking around the village for him, and he was nowhere to be found. Well, I had this strange sensation, this magnetic pull into the field, and my heart raced. My breath, and I was trembling. Or it could have been the Damiana I was smoking all day. Either way, the long short of it is, I ended up on Bart's ship. And off we went, and he didn't even notice me. Came to at some time later. He splashed water on my head to wake me up. That was the only time he ever made eye contact with me. He was muttering on and on about we showed up at the wrong time period. He was supposed to save some vixen from falling off a ladder. And it was my fault he didn't get there on time.
Thank you.
That vixen. So let me tell you, we were in Austin, somewhere in the 2000s. I'm out of place, and he sends me off to this really nice bed and breakfast called Austin State Hospital. I ended up residing there for a while, and, push come to shove, there was no more Bart. Nowhere. I must say I was very smitten with him as a young lady, and even now, still in my prime, still think about him from time to time. I'll never understand his little quirks, and he was always on a mission to save other people and to help other people, but not to breed with me. So I thought I'd write a little haiku to end this, and here's to Bart, that ass, hole, who's probably not dead. To Bart, that asshole. That asshole. Okay, now I'm introducing Luna Chanel.
I'm privileged tonight to read a second time on behalf of our favorite Darwin prophet. Sadly, the light is fading, so I'm going to stand somewhere where I can read her marvelous words a little more clearly. Can I read this?
We can pop that mic right off the stand.
Hopefully I will not anger Bart while I do this. Sorry.
I'll go ahead and take the place.
All right. So Darwin writes, Bartholomew Sebastian, raconteur, rogue, and rapscallion. I first met Bartholomew at a tea party for Lewis Carroll held by the Alice in North City's Carolinian Neorama. He had spiked the milk with absinthe, and the Wonderwood land creatures were all very animated. The Dormouse was regurgitating poetry in electric green typewriter ribbon. The Jabberwocky had rigged up the jiggly streams of consciousness to a harmonium, resulting in a cacophony of words being played at orbit-shifting volume in an atonal symphony of ludicrous liquidity. Luckily, the smell was reminiscent of licorice and lime, and it blended most satisfyingly with the Earl Grey. I shared a flask of Green Fairy straight with BS, a very smooth brew. Rumor has it that he had the stock stripped of their wings before conversion into tincture. Nothing was unimaginable to Bartholomew, and that was his greatest gift. This infinite imagining of his once unlocked a ship in our own Mobius drip, which had become stuck in an echo loop and was wreaking havoc with the schematic guild. The drip was playing all the notations to every traveler song that had been written in the last millennium cycle, and our time was running out of space. He suggested skipping a sea stone into the very center of the composition, and it worked. All the notes lined up chromatically, chasing the stone to a single tone, an inverse wave effect. He had a brilliant mind, if somewhat unconventional. All I can tell you is if it weren't for him, I'm not sure your current century would ever have met a Mayan traveler. I am saddened to hear he allowed himself to fade, but I'm heartened to hear he experienced his transition at the home of a beloved relative. The very night we met, he spoke to me of his Sam, how she was a powerful human incarnation of the most noble elements of his bloodline. Of course, when I came to Earth in her lifetime, I found his assertion to be well-founded. She was creating a time capsule in a space called Mysterium. In that space, she selflessly gathered enough fuel and harmonic synchronicity to repair my grounded Dar ship. Good deeds run in that family. I hope to find Bartholomew Sebastian again in my travels, for when energy fades from one existence, it often emerges in another. Until that time, I bid farewell to a soul filled with wit, charm, and chaotic revelry. May the memories remain. With love and respect, Darwin Prophet. To Bartholomew Sebastian. Bartholomew.
Okay. This could take me a minute, because it's my very final time at the mic. And I can't see my notes. Here we go. Since this is the final beer, brass, and Bartholomew Sebastian, I find I need to say a few words. First, of course, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight, because it means a lot to me that you all came. Secondly, thank you. Here we go. Secondly, I wanted to point out, you guys have been with me through a lot. 4 years may not seem like that much in the length of a life, but it's been a pretty exciting 4 years for me. The opening of my shop, the Mysterium, which at the time was one of only 4 steampunk shops in the country, and you guys totally supported me in that, and it was actually pretty successful. Now, of course, we have another steampunk shop out in Harper, Texas, Lucky Day Hats. And let me tell you, she's doing a lot more than hats, so make the trip. You're going to be glad you did. Also, a lot of you knew me when I had my accident, and it was an accident that easily could have killed me. Being me, and possibly just because I'm a descendant of Bartholomew Sebastian, I denied absolutely any possibility that I could have died for at least 2 years. But so many of you offered to help me out. Everything was offered, from haircuts to helping me in the shop to Wendy Snyder actually showing up one day with an envelope full of cash that I could not accept. But I never will forget it. Truly, I can never forget all of the help that was offered to me during that time, because it was an extremely needful time. And also, beware of ladders, because I fear they're trying to kill us all. Only about 6 weeks after my fall, if you all remember, Darwin Prophet fell off a ladder as well and broke bones. She was injured pretty severely. And once again, the community unerringly came together and helped her to move on from that. And she needed that help, and you guys made that happen. These are the things that make me proud to be a part of this community. I'd also like to recognize a few folks who have become very important to me. First, I have to mention Lisa Turner. Woohoo! Yeah, she deserves that applause. She was the first artist who visited me in my shop and asked to sell her wares there. Those of you who don't know Lisa, you should. She's a truly awesome and heroic person in her personal life. And even though she'll deny it, she is really, truly the secret puppet master of the entire steampunk community. We don't call her Demon Lisa Turner for nothing. If it wasn't for her early efforts regarding the Mysterium, I'm not sure I would have been successful there. Also, I'd like to mention Risha Lineweber, who wandered into my shop to sell her handmade hats one day and just changed my life forever. I've rarely seen such a marriage of truly amazing talent and truly amazing spirit. I'm so honored to count both of these women among my friends. And of course, there are lots and lots of other people in this room that mean a lot to me. Fax and Erica, two of the most genuine, giving individuals I've ever met. These two, and I have to mention, have managed to give me some of the most perfect gifts I've ever received, including a fantastic art print that cannot be avoided in my living room. It's placed in a place of honor. If you come in, you'll see it. There are so many other people. I wish I could mention everyone, but I'm going to mention just a few more. For instance, every eulogizer who spoke here tonight, thank you. You all helped me out. All of the performers who've never let me down, among them, the amazing Nathan Doughty, reader of Wondrous Tales, Russ Argo, who's always shows up with a smile on his face and who's taken the steampunk torch and run with it. Absolutely. Also, Chris Walden, also known as Saul Ravencraft. He's brought me so much talent and enthusiasm to this event. And without him, really, there's so much sitting there. I also have to mention David Abbott, who's filming tonight. His company and kindness have been incredibly delightful. I've never asked him for anything, and he's provided so many things, including picking up a check one time, which he thinks I did not notice. Also, I have to mention my good friend Chris Holm, who drives from San Antonio for this event. He showed up early tonight to help us out with setup. Barbara Slough, who has never once failed to make me laugh when I sit down with her. She's an amazing person. And she's driven me home when I've had too much to drink more than once. And lastly, well, not completely lastly, I want to mention a couple of other people here. There were a lot of people who worked at the Showdown who were they did, everything they did was for free. They did it for love. They worked really hard. Edwin and Courtney are two of those people. Sonia and Tom are here tonight, and they also, Sonia especially, worked really, really hard on that event, and it was such a delight to work with her. And, you know, if I'm forgetting to mention you, or if I haven't written you down, it doesn't mean I don't appreciate you, just that we have to wrap this up at some point. But lastly, we all need to thank my husband, Law Tyler. Even though he is a die-hard introvert who has probably not spoken to a lot of the folks in this room, none of this would have happened without him. Without his support, there would have been no Mysterium, no Beer Brass and BS. I won't point at him, so I won't be embarrassed, but if you know him, please shake his hand at some point, because he's done more than his part to create all of this and to create this community. He's worked every time I've asked him to, and he pretty much built the coffin that you're looking at tonight. So finally, this is it, and I ask you all to raise a glass to steampunk, to imagination, to Bartholomew Sebastian. I forgot my glass, but let's drink. Thanks, guys. Is there anyone else who wanted to do a eulogy tonight? Anyone?
Sam, there's someone we haven't heard from.
Yeah?
I brought something.
What's that?
I have with me a talking board.
What?
Yeah. This is a genuine 1908 fold board before Parker Brothers bought it and started selling it as a Ouija board.
I don't know, Saul. I'm a little nervous about this.
What could possibly go wrong? So, if anyone has any questions, would you help me? What's your name? Ashley. Let's lean the microphone down.
Awesome.
Now let's turn the microphone down.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay? Yes. Fantastic. Now, if anyone wants to gather around the table so you can see, that is fine. Everybody feel free to gather close. But we'll try to say things loud so you can hear it. All right, Ashley, have you ever done anything like this before? It's very easy. First, we'll move all the drinks out of the way. This is called a planchette, and it's just going to move around. You're going to place your fingers lightly on the planchette, and just allow it to be free. All right? All right. I'm going to turn the board this way a little bit so we can. There. So what you want to do is just let yourself relax, let yourself sort of go into almost like a hypnotic trance, and just let it do whatever it wants to do. All right? You don't have to push it, you don't have to move it, just let it do what it wants to do. I'm going to reach out, and I'm going to ask a spirit to come and join us. Is there a spirit here that is willing to speak to us? I, Saul Ravencraft, call to you from beyond the shadows to join us in this room, in this place of celebration, and to speak to us. Is there a spirit here? Yes. Who is with us? H-A-W-K-S. Hawks. That's one of my spirit guides. That's good. Mr. Hawks, are you able to help us tonight? Yes. We're looking for another spirit, someone who may be able to come forward and speak to us. Will you help us bring him forth? Yes. I'm feeling a difference in the energy. Did you feel that, Ashley? Isn't that weird? Oh. It's being weird. Is there another spirit here? Yes. Who is with us? I'm saying. Tell us who you are. B. S. Are you Bartholomew Sebastian? He's recalcitrant. Are you Bartholomew Sebastian? Yes. Wonderful. Does anyone have any questions?
Bartholomew, are you still alive in another timeline?
Yes.
Will you say hello to Uncle Lewis for me?
Say it again.
Will you say hello to Uncle Lewis for me?
Okay.
Will you ever return to our time?
That's kind of difficult. He's kind of going back and forth. I'm not sure what that means.
I hear you owe Deanne some child support. report. Is she ever gonna see a dime?
H-E-L-L. No. Okay. Is there someone that you'd like to speak to? Yes. Who? Oh, God, that was beastly boring. Hello.
Hello.
Sam, darling. I have to see. I must see. I am a beautiful corpse. I am. Oh, nice to see you again. Nice to see you again. How could I forget you? Nice to see you again.
And you avoid being late for our meeting.
Oh. I haven't met you yet. Don't think I haven't noticed you. Oh, I am overwhelmed. I was so touched. You bastard, you took my mustache. I took yours too, so it's fair. Where is yours? Where is it? No, the other one.
Oh. Oh.
There, now we're even. Oh, I hadn't noticed this. Oh, that's not too fond of this. Nor this. Oh. I just wanted to say that I am so touched and so grateful by all of the wonderful things that you said. Where did she go? Oh, you said, that all of you said, and of course you.
She still doesn't make eye contact with me.
She was a bit young.
I never stopped you before.
I'll make it up to you later, I promise. I promise. Now, I just wanted to say how wonderful it has been to have so many of you speak so highly of me, to carry on my memory, to bring out these old bones and show them such reverence and such kindness. To dear Sam, my beloved relative who has great things in store for you. Great things in store, mark my words.
I will.
It was so brave of you to begin this, to keep my identity secret from people, to bring them together and cause them to celebrate, to pursue that search, to create that opportunity. I do believe that the person who is destined to create that future is in this room right now. My time is short.
I have no future.
It is always too short.
Work comes
No
dressed as
matter how
man
far,
as well. I don't
no
know.
matter how wonderful the company, no matter how exciting the adventure, it is always too short. There's never enough time to pursue all of the things of which you are capable. There's never enough time to spend with the people who you should know. There's never enough time for all the love of which you are capable. So I demand that all of you who would remember me, who would drink, where's a bloody drink?
Here's one for you.
Oh, there's a drink. Oh, aye, there's a drink. To all of you who would remember me, take every moment that you have. Raise your glass up high. Drink to yourselves.
To us.
Drink to Sam. Oh, and I'm going to show you the most wonderful thing. This is very funny. Would you hold this? Watch. Oh, damn, I missed it.
Skeleton just sit up now. Yeah, that would be something.
No more drinks for that man.
I have a drink?
Don't consider that an hour drink.
Oh. So, but here's oh my goodness. Oh, that smells good. No, I'm not worthy. Oh, to Bartholomew Sebastian.
Bartholomew Sebastian!
I think I need to sit down now. I feel weird.
Well, folks, we are down to the drinking and celebrating the life of Bartholomew Sebastian part of the evening. Let the drinking begin.
Oh, just now. Well,